Welcome back to the Better Men, Better Ball Player podcast. I'm your host, Trey Cobb. I want to thank you for joining us here on our 57th episode, year two, and still going strong here with our assistant coaches. We're going to still take in some time to talk to some great assistant coaches, some long-time assistant coaches, some assistant coaches making a great name, great programs, and we're going to stick with Maryland, a longtime high school baseball assistant coach with Bill Burton. Coach Burton is been a longtime assistant coach with the St. Michael Saints, where he's helped Coach Femi won multiple state championships. He has been the state assistant coach of the year and voted on by our Maryland State High School Baseball Coach Association. And it's just been a staple of the program and has done some incredible things. They run a very high-paced pressure offense, and Coach Burton is the offensive coordinator there. And so we dive into a lot of those things and how they are putting pressure on their offense and the great things that he likes to do. And really from his background and from his time at Frostburg State University as a player and playing for Bob Wells, we get back into that. And so really a great conversation, a lot of nuts and bolts. If you like talking baseball, you're really going to like this one. He gets right into it, talking some great things. You're looking for something to do base running wise. You're looking for how to incorporate a much better dynamic warm-up time for your first 20 minutes of practice. This is the one for you. Coach Burton just kind of dives in and gets all that information out, and we just roll. And this is one that I just couldn't believe that we were already an hour, and we had covered a lot, and we just kept on going one thing after the other, and so there's a lot of great notes here, a lot of great notes, a lot of great nuggets, and it was just really nice, really great conversation, and can't thank Coach Burton enough. So again, Coach Bill Burton, assistant coach at St. Michael's in St. Michael's, Maryland, has done a tremendous job, and it's no wonder that these guys is just always one of the forefront tops in the state. Coach Burton been there 20 years, and just doing some great things. So without further ado, I want to get right into this. Hope you guys enjoyed. I know I did, and Coach Burton, I can't thank you enough for taking some time. And so without further ado, here he is, Coach Bill Burton.
Yeah, there's another guy that was the head coach at Easton High, and they fired him for political reasons and put in their own guy. And he came down and started coaching with us. He's actually the third base coach. So it's Donnie Gow, myself. This guy's named Zach Wallace. He's really good. He does the catching. So Brian is just really good about delegating, and that's where it makes everybody feel comfortable, is that everybody has their own thing. And then he reaches out, makes it clear that, I'm looking for your input here. What are your thoughts? What do you think we ought to do? And almost like an Indian chief, he sort of sits back and says, okay, now that I've spoken to everybody, this is the way it's going to be, and so, definitive answer, but he wants the input from every angle. And then, he'll say, this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think of that? And so it's a really healthy environment.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I just told him that as long as you're going to do it, I'll be your assistant. And that started in 2002.
Yeah.
So, of course, we've known each other since we were, well, I was 15. I guess he was 18. He's 3 years older than I am.
Okay.
And we met in the bowling alley of all places. But Brian, is an amazing bowler. I mean, many 300 games and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
He was a nose tackle for James Madison University. I bet you didn't know that either. Mm-hmm. He played in the 80s with some really good, some football, and that's kind of helped his baseball too, because he had these concepts that go back to Bob Wells. I'm sure you've heard that name, Frostburg State legendary. And Wells was a big influence in the Cumberland area, and in fact, all statewide, I would say. in terms of, he's sort of like our baseball Jesus. Freddie Krieger has said that before.
Yeah. Definitely
He's
a Fred Krieger comment.
absolutely, yeah. So the idea here is that he was doing all of these inventive things, and then Brian was bringing this football stuff, which was more station drills, kind of keep everybody moving. And it was just a great marriage, right person, right philosophies at the right time. And we still see incredibly the people who are out there, and they take they do BP, they do in and out, and then they go home, and somehow they're able to field a team. But it's just not fair to the kids. Brian's idea is to keep the kids moving.
Yeah, and it seemed like you share that. Like, is that something that you came in with, sharing that philosophy, or is it something you grew just like helping him out, and then absolutely this is the way to do it?
Well, I saw how he had everybody moving, and you just don't want people standing in lines waiting to do something, because that's repetition's lost. And it's all about the number of game speed, competitive repetition is what we're trying to do. As many opportunities for that to happen in a 2-hour period as you can make.
And you being like your offense, you're like the offensive coordinator there for St. Michael's. Like, what are some of the best ways? Like, so like, how are you challenging hitters like in a game like manner? Like, what are some of the things you like to do, like practice wise?
Okay, so the biggest thing in our eyes is sort of, what are you thinking about in that 15 to 30 second range in between pitches, because that's going to have a big impact on the outcome of whatever that pitch is. So, like, for example, if you're in the field, are you thinking about, okay, ground ball, slow roller to me, I'm gonna go to second, or if you're in the batter's box, I've got are you what are you looking for? Are you attacking? Are you defending? Based on the count. And so there's a whole lot of if you think about it in terms of just basic hitting, just the structure of it, the mental aspect of that. And then, so we'll do, okay, all the way up until 2 strikes, you're in an attack mode. Anything that comes in a little box, which is slightly smaller than the actual strike zone, because you don't want to be swinging at pitchers' pitches at that, in that time frame with less than 2 strikes. So we'll have drills. The station is, I'm going to be throwing, pitch after pitch that are like 2-0 or 2-1. It's something other than a 2 strike count. You're ahead in the count. Right? For a hitter, that's all that really matters. And nothing changes until you get 2 strikes.
Right.
And then at that point, you're defending a bigger box, slightly larger than the actual strike zone. And you can't just tell a kid this. He's got to practice it. You got to throw balls on the border, pitches on the border from 30, 45 feet or whatever. And you've got to say, why did you swing at that? I'm challenging you on that. Was that in your little box? Was that in your big box? And, they'll come clean on you and say, I was just whacked. I was just wailing, so much of BP is just like seeing the ball and hitting the ball. But really, we want you to think about, okay, is that a pitch that I want to even, so strike zone discipline is huge for us.
Is that something that do you guys chart that at all? Do you guys chart that to see how you guys do in the game?
This is the first time I saw a chart that you could do that. I mean, I always make mental notes, but I think it was something that I saw on your Twitter feed, maybe, that you had a chart. Can't remember who had posted it there for you, or maybe it was
probably
you.
Swope did. Probably Swope did, and then I did one that was like based off of that. But yeah, Matt Swope from Maryland had a decision making chart. And I think then Chuck Box, and I had one as well. But yeah, man, like for me, it was just as simple as had a guy behind there, had a guy that was looking to help, and he stood behind the backstop, and it was like, did you swing at strikes? Did you take the balls? Just simple as that.
Yep. Yeah. And that's a very very similar principle. So
Mm-hmm.
we rep that as much as we, like, for example, if we're swinging on a lot of curveballs in the dirt with 2 strikes, we will have, a 2 strike, drill station. So
Is
that
this
when
all
they
based?
go,
Good. I was just thinking like I was thinking like when you say station wise, is this a station like
mhm.
during BP, like at home plate when you're doing that? Or are you talking like station like at the cage kind of station hitting stations?
Yeah, we'll have a group on the field hitting live.
Yeah.
We'll have a cage station or 2.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we'll have a bunting station. So
Mm-hmm.
it's nothing but a hitting circuit, right?
Right.
Um, but my favorite is competitive BP, where we'll have a live group, a cage group, 2 shag groups, and a base running group.
Okay.
So there's like 4 people in a station, 4 people in a group, and you'll have 2 groups in the field shagging.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got 8. You got 8 players in the field, and they're at positions, real live positions. And so every swing gets graded. Every, if there's a great hustle play, a great catch, there's nobody running any bases, hitters wise, I mean, until the last swing of that guy. And then he would actually try to advance, from home plate, where they would play the situation live. But that's a competitive BP, which is just fantastic in terms of you just see so much defensively, offensively, and then base running. That's where the hitters actually get live reps.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example of that would be we've got a group at second base. That's where they start them. I call it island reads. So nobody at third, nobody at first. It's just you on an island, right? Less than 2. What do you do on a ground ball to the pull side for a right-handed hitter? The third base side.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's hit right at you? What if it's hit towards the second baseman on the ground? So that's a read. You got to make sure that, ground ball to shortstop, you can't break towards third.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the pro level, those guys are still doing that, and it's an easy, catch and throw to third base, tag that guy out. But you got to practice it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you ask the kid to do, you can't just say, well, we shouldn't have to work on that, So we're doing those types of reads. Infield line drive, break back. It's not enough to freeze. You have to actually break back, because if the second baseman, if you're at second and you've done your primary lead, then you've secondaried and you actually broke towards third on the infield line drive, you're out. You've got to be going back on an infield line drive. If it gets through, you're going to at least get third, maybe score anyway. And if it gets caught, if you're breaking back, then you could be safe there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, okay, so that's the base running. That's the base running part of the competitive BP. And you can see how much we can accomplish just in, 45-minute, 50-minute segment.
That's it. Just one clarifying thing about that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
will your group? Do you like to have your group that's hitting? Is that a group? And the group on the bases, is that a group? Or is like the hitting group also like the last guy is also the base runner?
Yeah. So the hitting group would stay together.
Okay.
There's 4
So then you
guys,
have a
and then
hitting group, and then you get
yeah,
and then you have base running group at second. Right? You got
right,
like
and
4 guys all at second base, right? Okay.
right.
Just wanted to clarify on that.
So Coach Femi would say something like live to shag, shag to cage,
Yeah.
cage to base running, right?
Right.
And then it's just a rotation like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great thing. But getting back to what are we doing in the cage? Well, it's just nothing but O2s, or maybe we're changing the situation. So we'll work a count. The first pitch is 0-0. I threw a ball, so now it's 1-0. Tried to get him to swing at something that he shouldn't have. So now it's 2. He took it. So now it's 2-0. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's burning a lot of calories just thinking about it. He's not really just wailing. Now, sometimes, hey, all right, so the count's 2-1. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm thinking attack, and I'm thinking little box.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So then, just feed him those balls and let him wail on that. But then throw one right, a pitcher's pitch right on the corner, low and outside. Does he just go in automatic mode and swing at that? Because you see, a lot of defensive hacks in situation on a 3-1 pitch. That kid should have been, just waiting for something in his happy zone.
Right. No,
So I'm
absolutely.
kind of
So
rambling.
it's so just to
Yeah.
reiterate, review like you like to have counts all the time. Like basically every day you guys are working in some type of count. So guys are understanding what they're looking for in certain situations.
Right. And that would be that would be in the cage. We would never
Okay.
do that on the live group. And we want the live group to just, get loose and
So like okay, so like if you're just doing the island read at second base,
yeah.
will you be looking to have your guys hitting like for the first round, maybe like hit ground balls, like just be a pure ground ball round, or are you still just like getting them free?
Yeah, it's that's not really the focus. The focus is, hey, these are the decisions on the base paths that decide the game. And so you got to practice it. And it's just reading a live batted ball, a pitch that's thrown and a ball that's hit. What did it do? And a lot of times you've got actual fielders, so you can judge the depth of the fly. Should I be going halfway or should I be tagging? All of those types of decisions. At second base, it's a lot of fun because for us, it's totally dependent on the number of outs in terms of what you're doing. Obviously, two outs, you're not tagging, but should you tag if it's medium deep left field or those types of things? You want the guy to actually see it, look at the angle, and then of course my favorite is when the ball is struck. If you've seen enough ball that when that ball struck, you can tell that is over the infield
Mm-hmm.
but in front of the outfield just from that way it comes off the bat. And I see so many guys just hanging at second, and and I'm standing there going, it's going to drop.
Mm-hmm.
It's over the infield in front of the outfield, right? How quickly can you recognize it? Well, they get better and better and better the more they see it. You can't just rely on the game to give them that.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes back to the reps, just as many reps as you can get. And if you like that base running stuff, the guy at second, he makes the right read on a ground ball. Let's say it was a slow roller to the right side. He advances to third. He broke properly on
Yeah.
a island read. Now he's at third. Is everything that's above his belly button, he should be going back. Why on earth are we breaking towards home on balls hit to the outfield? If you go back, right, you're going to tag and you're going to score, right? And if it gets through, if it's dropped, you're going to even if you went back and tagged, you're still going to score because you're only 90 feet away.
Mm-hmm.
So that we're working on that. And then sometimes we're working on like a contact play at third. So any ground ball, you're going. You mean even a one hopper back to the mound? Well, then we get into the gray area, okay, that would be called a kiss of death. And you want to stop getting a rundown so the hitter can get to second,
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's something that we're not asking our kids to do anything that we haven't,
Worked
prepped
on.
them for. Yeah.
So will you take certain days or like will it just be like okay, we're only doing island reads, so like once you make the read you get back in line, or is it like okay, then just go to third and we're just going to work on it there?
Well, the way it usually works is the first couple of days we'll only do one read. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody's
Yeah.
reading at second.
Yeah.
And then we'll gradually merge to you go from second to third to first, where maybe you're doing a hit and run or a steal jump. And we're always taking a peek in to see what the hitter does. We don't do a hit and run versus a run and hit. They're all hit and run, or they're all run and hits to us, unless we've given a hit and run sign. So we're not going to take the bat out of the hands
Mm-hmm.
of a hitter just because this guy wants to steal. So he's running towards second in a steal. He's got to sneak a peek at the plate, maybe 2 arm pumps and a peek, just to see. I want to see the ball off the bat. So many people wait for the ball to be batted. Okay, you hear the ting, and now you're trying to find it. Well, of course, high level defensive teams are going to deke the hell out of you, right? And
Right.
then even if they're not, the ball's hit behind you, you don't know it. You should be rounding second and headed to third, and you just cost us 90 feet because you didn't sneak a peek. It's got to become a habit, and there's a lot of old habits that you're trying to break down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at first. Island reads at second, and then maybe change it up as a play that we call at third base, where we just take the read out of it, and you're going on any ground ball back on anything above your belly button.
I love that, back on above the belly button. That's a cool visual, man. Like that is really neat. I've never heard that. Ball above your belly button, get back. That's pretty cool. That's
Thanks.
cool. That is super
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, that's neat, man. I that's good. As Steve Springer said, I'll give you that one, but man, I might use after that. That's cool, man. Ball above your belly button, get back. That's cool.
Yep.
But I do like that. So typically you hear like freeze on line drive. I'm like, now you better get back or you're out.
Yes.
Like you better be getting back. Period. Simple. Ball above your belly button, get back, especially at third base. Third base. That's good. Third base. That's cool. So, okay, just great, man. This is great stuff. So I like how you said, like, it sounds like too, like, hey, here's what we do. Here's what happens a lot in the game. We're just going to focus on these things. Like, we're going to do the run and hits. We're going to do your island reads because this is what happens with win games. And they're really going to put like our 1 or 2 plays that we do at third. It sounds like you're only doing basically what's kind of in your system during practice.
Yep. We're focused on making, we're never going to put a kid in a situation where we're expecting him to do something we haven't repped, even though we think we might work. It's like, we really hadn't repped that,
Mm-hmm.
What if this happens? So this is stuff that we talk about even between innings, because now the chess match has begun. We're going to make this move. They make this move. Now, what do we do? Well, with this kid, we can't do that, those types of things. And, okay, but we haven't repped it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Brian would say.
That's I think that only great coaches, man. Great coaches will definitely say that. They're not going to expect anyone, even good leaders. You're not going to expect certain things without, leading from example and having done it and practice and put yourself in that situation. It's awesome. Typically, you guys are really aggressive, like you talk about the run and hit a little bit, and just kind of with base running. When you're stealing bags, like how do you even work on that? So it's like during BP, you're talking about really just reading the bat of the ball. What about when it comes to base running?
Actual steals.
Actually stealing,
okay.
like stealing them on the pitcher and things like that.
We've actually made it kind of a part of the warm up,
Oh yeah.
Where people are usually standing in a circle and maybe, stretching their fingers or whatever they do, we're making more of a dynamic thing. And then we will do some, traditional, was it the plyometrics is the right word or not? I don't know. They're jumping jacks and, skipping and those types of things. And then we'll go right into 4 groups. And one of the groups is, I've got a group at first base. Coach Femi has a group at second base, third base, working on a sprint lead, trying to cover the suicide. Every play looks like a suicide if you're sprint lead on a windup. And so we'll sprint, stop, and then give them something to read at third. While over here at first, we're doing something base running wise in terms of, and Coach Femi's doing the same thing at second, but essentially, we've got fake steals to work on.
Right.
We love the fake steal because if you're doing it right, there's no risk to us at all. And it puts a ton of pressure on the defense. And that's what we really are about, putting pressure on the defense. But it goes back to, have we repped it? Are the kids comfortable? Because if they're not comfortable, then you're actually putting pressure on yourself and not the defense, So getting back to steal jumps. So steal jumps in a righty versus steal jumps on a lefty. We might be tempted to go with first move on those big lefty long leg lifts,
Mm-hmm.
and be safe whether he picks or goes home, and just help kids understand that it's okay to go when he lifts that front foot. It's the are you sure, Coach B? I mean, can we really do this? Yeah, you can do that, because a lot of it's new to a lot of kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they got to see it. They got to see it. And sometimes we'll sneak in a gunslinger move, and they were stealing on first move, but it's the first move with the front foot, not the back foot on the rubber.
Mm-hmm.
So get yourself together. So all right, so let's get back to stealing the base. We're doing a lot of things with that position that the kids get themselves into, where it's hard to get around their front foot, so they end up picking it up and then putting it back down, and sometimes they put it back down closer to first base than it was towards second base. That whole 0.3 of a second is geared to turning your hip and getting you moving in the right direction. Well, why don't we just cut our lead down a little bit and get in more of a sprinter stance? Cut your primary lead. If that's what you're really going to dedicate 0.3 of a second to, that, then turn your hips and get ready to run towards second.
Mm.
So think about my left toe as a
Mm-hmm.
base runner at first is pointed at third.
Mm-hmm.
And my right toe is kind of like at the shortstop, or maybe even second base itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you've kind of cocked your feet.
Sure.
And then, and then, we're starting our hips up high and we're sinking to get some artificial movement. As the pitcher is holding, I'm sinking my hips, and I'm really dropping my weight into my front knee so that I can get a really nice crossover step, because I don't want to pick that foot up and put it back down. I want to cross over with my left foot towards second base. And then we also are using something that we picked up at one of those conventions, the Cherry Hill Clinic.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy speaking there from Wright State, and his name is
Matt Tellerico.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about the vault and
Mm-hmm.
the one shuffle vault and the two vault thing. We had a lot of success with that, and that's where I guess the story that I like to tell is that we started trying it with some of our more athletic kids. Go to an Easter tournament. Mount St. Joe has a catcher that's 188 going to Wake Forest like they always do, right?
Yeah.
And so we get a runner at first base in the first inning, and he goes, he's first pitch, he just time him, shuffle, missed it, comes back to the base. So when you go shuffle and the pitcher hadn't committed, you're just going to stop there, and you're in the same position as you would have been had you just gotten a normal primary lead. And so second pitch, he went shuffle, pitcher picked his foot up and went home just at exactly the right time. And our guy slides without a throw. It's like, we did the math. It's like 4 to 0.5 of a second faster if you've got momentum towards second base when the guy makes his move to the plate. Even if you only get one shuffle, the momentum that you've gained, it's the vertical distance is not that important. It's the momentum. If you've got one shuffle's worth of momentum towards second base, in almost all cases, you're going to be safe. So what has it done is it's made like your Oompa Loompas, who are 4-0 from a 12-foot primary lead, they're now a stealing threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're in a drill station, this is what I'm doing with these kids for 5 minutes, and then they go to second base, and then they do, I don't know, looks. He looks at you once, he looks at the plate, he looks at you again, and then he looks back at the plate, and then he goes to the dish. Well, the kid has to see that. It's okay to start going towards third if he's taken his 2 looks and you've got him categorized as a 2-look guy.
Absolutely.
It's okay. Oh, and the dog is in agreement too.
Yes, he is. That's good. That's good.
So and then they get over to third base, they're doing, some kind of third basey thing. But the idea here is, just within that, that's that I guess it would be maybe 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah,
We've done a whole ton
ton.
of base running stuff, and all we were doing was warming up.
Mm-hmm.
We don't keep them there. I'm coming set. If I've got a group at first, I'm coming set and then I'm pitching, or I'm coming set and I'm picking. And now they're diving and getting up, and then I'm going to the plate, and then they're breaking, and the next group in, and we usually have three guys, maybe two or three guys going at once.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Just keep it moving.
yeah,
Like you said, people in action.
people moving.
People moving. Keep 'em in action. No, that's great stuff, man. And then at third base, you're probably working your contact plays or, above the belly button plays.
Third
Yeah.
base, yeah. We
Yep.
want them to be able to. All right, so we'll also have an island at third, right? So if it's like man on third, nobody at first, nobody at second, and ground ball in the infield, we're trying to take gray area out of it, and we'll say something like, it is largely dependent on the defense. Is the defense back? Because now we can go on every ground ball. Are they up on the corners, which is, very common, deep in the middle, up on the corners? Then now you're looking for that ground ball that's in the middle of the field, but no kiss of death, right? That's the 1-2 hopper back to the mound. You can't go on that ball. So, again, it needs practice. You can't just say, "Oh, Billy, you shouldn't have run on that." You've got to have, you have to have it part of the game plan.
So with that, so you said 4 groups. Will you have a group at the plate that's working on maybe the ground balls there, or will that be your bunt group that maybe you're trying to bunt a little bit there?
Sometimes it varies. Sometimes that might be somebody who's working on their turns at first.
Okay.
They're coming out of the box and they're making a turn, or maybe that's a group that's sort of like in the in shallow left, and they're getting fungos on the ground with a fungo hitter at the dish.
Okay.
Right? So it's just another place. Sometimes that'll be somebody doing shoulder work with baseballs, depending on, we might vary that, but we always have three bases just in the warm-up stations.
Right. Well, like you said, that is part of the warm up, that they're really just warming up and you're getting your legs loose and things like that, but you're just trying to, make it like kill 2 birds with 1 stone kind of deal.
Yep. Yep.
If we're gonna run,
Mhm.
we might as well run the bases. Absolutely. No,
Yep.
that's great stuff. So just thinking about like your bunting and stuff, because I know you guys, bunting's a big part of your guys' game as well. And you being the offensive coach, like where, that's another part of base running, is even just reading the bunt, let alone putting the bunt
Yeah.
down. Like,
Yeah.
do you like to do that during, like you said, during this BP time? Is that just is that around a BP? Where do you like to incorporate that?
That'll be through in the hitting circuits usually. So we'll have multiple groups, and one station would be bunting. So we actually have the diagram on the field, home plate, foul lines, and then about 30 feet down, we'll start these magic boxes, right? The panic
Okay.
zone and the hurry zone. So if you put a bunt in the hurry zone, you get a certain amount of points. If you put a bunt in the panic zone, why is it called the panic zone, Coach B? Well, if you put a bunt in there, the pitcher's going to panic, because a lot of times that's what we're attacking, is the pitcher. And it's just such a big thing for us in terms of putting pressure on the defense. Let's say, for example, you got first and second, nobody out. Pretty much an automatic bunt situation for us, because that guy at third base, what is he going to do? Is he going to charge? Because if he's going to charge, if they've got him charging, then we're probably fake bunting and stealing third. If he's hanging back, now it's open license. They're essentially saying, can you put it in this box?
Mm-hmm.
And so we spend about 15 minutes a day on bunting. I would say pretty much every day, not every day, but pretty much every day, we will work that much for every kid. And it's, they get 1 or 2 bunts. They pop it into the box, and then they go to first base, okay, at this little bunt station, right? And now they're reading the pitcher. Don't turn your hips and start running to second until you see the bunted ball on a downward plane. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to wait for it to hit the ground, but it has to be going on a downward plane. Then you can make your break, right? So that's where you get that. And we're also sneaking in a little bit more base running down there too, as well. For example, the lefty, when nothing is on, and he's got a good move, right? So he's picking up his leg, and then he's going to go to the plate. Oh, but wait, he's picking. Now you're at the bunt station and you're having to concentrate on making sure a lefty is going to the plate. Not just, I think he's going home, but actually going home. So the bunter is the bunt. He'll go to first. Maybe he'll go to second also and get another read. And then they come around. Maybe they're at third base now and they're going to try to score on a suicide, or maybe we're going to do a safety there. Lots of safeties at St. Michael's with first and third. And then they come to bunting. So the four guys in the group, they're either base running or they're bunting. There's no waiting around.
Mm-hmm.
And so bunt, run, 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 bunt, run, 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 bunt, run, 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 bunt. Why did you bunt that, Billy? It was a ball. I shouldn't have been bunting that, and I'm going to do better at selecting it. But the idea is, we're never trying to make an out on purpose to move and advance a runner. We're trying to get a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're trying to put pressure on the defense. And I have to emphasize, it doesn't matter how fast the guy is. If he can put it 30 to 45 feet near the baseline, he's going to be safe. Even if the guy's playing up, it's amazing. And then, you factor in, okay, there is the percentage of the guys who can do that, 7, 8, we'd like to get them to 9 times out of 10. Well, then I like those ads a whole lot. And then when you factor in the fact that, there's a good chance that third baseman is going to throw it in the woods over there, right? So now all of a sudden you've got the chance that there's going to be some kind of error, a mental breakdown on the defense, just so much pressure just with this one little play. And it's just a real shame that, for some reason it left the game completely.
Yeah, it's at the higher levels. It's definitely a lot different, for sure. I mean, it still plays a lot. I've been known a couple guys that I got to be able to meet this year and have on the podcast. The West Coast baseball is still very alive in the West Coast. So those West Coast guys still run a very, and that's what's funny though. Because the more that I got to talk to them, look, man, there's a lot of guys that I know. In our area, I think we've played some pretty good baseball, especially because you got to do what you with your clientele in high school that we run. I think there's definitely a lot of West Coast offense, even kind of around here. You guys basically run almost a West Coast style of offense.
Right.
Not really. Middletown, when they won state championship, they had I think one home run all year. They were basically a West Coast style of offense. It was just it's just different. I guess just the way that we describe it around here, but it's definitely a very, very tough way. And like you said, you want to put pressure on defense. I hear a lot of coaches talk about pressure bursts pipes, those kind of things. But
Trey, if we had 9 guys that could hit it out of the yard, like some of these, higher level, of course, I'm going to let them swing away.
Right.
It's a no brainer, but there are times even in those games, at those levels, you need to get the guy to second base.
Absolutely.
Or, first and second, nobody out, man. We love the bunt.
Absolutely.
Bunt for
I
hit.
agree.
We love the bunt for hit.
Right. And it's definitely something that I think as a young, like my son's young and 10, it's always a, a decision you're working, how much do you develop the swing and how, when are you really just trying to put bunting into their game? Because, they're young and you're really just trying to get them reps and have them understand their swing. So when they come into your program and you being the offensive coordinator and with Femi and then how much you guys bunt, what is the transition period like when people come in knowing the kind of system you want to put in place with bunting the ball?
Yeah. So the biggest thing there is a lot of it has to do with how much time in a public school, how much time do you really have with this kid to actually get him to change his swing if he's got issues. Um, the whole time we're working, we do have a station where we're working mechanics more focused on the cage or on the field. But it's going to be a situation where, hey, you can only do so much. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe the mental side is where you're able to get um, the greater return on your investment in terms of time with a public high school in Maryland. Um, the mental side. So that's the strike zone awareness. We will not chase kind of mindset, but also, adding these other kind of skills into your, other than, being able to drop a bunt, there's not a lot of things that we're asking the kid to do. Well, we're not saying go inside out on hit and run. We just want the kid to take a regular hack at a good pitch. Those types of things. But yeah, we're going to work mechanically on them. Just make sure that they're, getting trying to get them to get the barrel of the bat into the strike zone or into the hitting zone or on the plane of the pitch, I guess is the right way to say it, and keep it there as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Femi's really good at that. He spends a lot of time on that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be his station during the hitting cycle.
Yeah, it seems
Um,
like you guys. Well, you guys fortunate enough to have a coach at each station. Like, are you basically trying to have your head on a swivel with two? Or are you basically pretty fortunate to have everybody at one station?
Yep. There's always a coach at a station. So maybe this day we have just four because we only have four coaches. Maybe we're practicing with the JVs today. So now we've got everybody together, and now we can add more groups based on the fact that we've got two more coaches. Those types of things.
Okay.
I don't know if that's helpful or not, but
Well, it is
yeah,
like so.
you got to have a grown up there to making sure they're doing the right
Yeah.
thing.
Well, I mean, it's just sometimes tough, and life happens when you might not get. It's the
Yeah.
heart of the life of a high school coach. For me, having to
Yes.
wear so many different hats because life happens. Guys might not be there, and it's hard to get to practice at 4:30 or when you're trying to run practice for people that work. Um, so it's just something that high school coaches have to deal with for sure. Oh man. Um, great stuff, coach. Great stuff. Um, man, like so just looking at um your time at St. Michael's, what you've been able to, been a part of with St. Michael's, like what's some of the lessons, I guess you could say almost that you've kind of learned, through your time there.
Well, I would like to say something about Coach Wells and, the influence that he's had on my life. Even before I got to Frostburg, he was um, influencing these other coaches around. And I had gotten one of these guys who had played for Wells in the 60s, right? And so we were running all of these, crazy plays and, the whole, being able to score runs without hits essentially, and just using, well, it's just good base running and baseball skills, all this philosophies. And, where'd you get this, Coach Wells? And he was like, I got this from the Negro leads, the
Hmm.
research that I've done, this is the way they played. And these are the types of things that would carry over um, and would be successful in the way that they played against one another. And so, it's just kind of a neat history that would be something that would get ingrained with me as a teenager before I got there, because I was playing for this coach who had been under Wells. And so when I went to Frostburg, I ended up using essentially the same playbook. And then when I bumped into Brian Femi and he said he was coaching high school baseball in St. Michael's, Maryland, I said, he says, I used the Frostburg State playbook. And I
Hmm.
said, well, I played at Frostburg. And he said, well, we sure would like to have you down. And, I hadn't seen him in, I don't know, 20 years. And so one thing led to another. I went to my boss the next day and I said, this is what I want to do. And he said, I don't care when you get your work done, as long as you get it done, you can do this in the afternoons in the spring. And it's changed my life forever, really,
Yeah.
But the fact that I only know this one type of baseball. I've never been around anything other than that.
Mhm.
And it started when I was a young kid. And then as far as the things that I've learned while there, well, I started for the reason I started was for the baseball itself. But what I found was this was really about relationships, about, um, there's a lot of kids out there who need some sort of, support. A lot of times they don't have a parent figure there. And you can be, kind of a sounding board for all kinds of weird stuff that goes through their heads on a regular basis. If you're just listening and you're paying attention, you know, um, it, and now I can go through the town of St. Michael's and, I'll hear, "Hey, Coach B," from the other side of the road. And it's a player, a former player, or maybe a parent of a former player. It's just, it's about relationship building and just doing the right thing for the kid. The what Coach Femi is doing, and I like to think I'm a part of it, is that it's sort of like a lighthouse that is, the morals and the principles, leave it better than you found it kind of thing. Like when we go to a restaurant after a game and we're having a post-game meal, leave this restaurant better than you found it. Leave this dugout better than you found it. Pick up those gum wrappers, all of those types of things. And then when they get into later on in life, and then it's about, we want those kids to grow up to be, contributors to the community, good fathers, good parents, good husbands, those types of things. Have you given them the lighthouse that they can, they're out in the ocean and they're rowing, or the lake, and they're rowing the boat? Can they occasionally look back and see the lighthouse shining the beacon, to help you, guide you back to where you need to be? I heard him one time. He said, we were getting a bite to eat, and somebody said, "Hey, Coach, how's the team going to be this year?" And he, without batting an eye, he says, "I'll tell you in 20 years." Because
Yeah.
what he's referring to is, did they grow up? Are they going to grow up to be good people? And
Mhm.
so that's really what it's about. And the baseball secondary just happens to be the tool that we're using to teach it.
Absolutely. That's well said. Very well said. And couldn't agree. You're definitely been a part of that, coach. That's for sure. That's for
Thanks.
sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, man.
Makes you feel
Um,
good when you think about it.
yeah, for sure. For sure it does. Impacting a lot of lives, man. Absolutely. So like speaking of Coach Femi, so I'm working for a great guy like him. Like you said, as long as he'll do it, you'll be there with him.
Hmm.
What kind of advice would you give for other head coaches? For like the lessons that you learned from him, or like what he does so well with you that allows you to stay there and kind of grow and all the kind of I want to say freedom that you have, but like
Hmm.
the absolute authentic. You have a lot of responsibility in your program. So like, what kind of advice would you even give other head coaches?
Well, that's a great question. And and I'd have to say a lot of it is, if you're doing the right things, almost take that last paragraph that I just said and put it right here in this answer too, because um, if your priorities are in the right place, that's going to be a big guiding light. The other thing is, getting good people and letting them do their job, and trusting them. And of course, that's a tough thing. It's easier said than done.
Hmm.
You've got to have a reason to trust them. You got to build that trust over time. Um, and so just letting that happen. But you can't do it all yourself. And so, being the only way you're going to be successful is delegating that stuff. And then that makes those people feel involved. So,
Hmm.
That would be something that I would tell somebody who was
Like
new to the head coaching.
how has that like growth and how like happened with you and Femi? Like has that did it happen over like that was it just like hey you were able to okay he did a little bit of base running and now like oh that we did really well with that okay now we're gonna
Hmm.
like was it just like he kind
Yeah.
of almost like as a player like you have a role player like okay I'm gonna
Yeah.
give you this you do this well then it gets a little bit bigger is that kind of
Yeah.
how your situation was?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it because, yeah, at first, I mean, coming from a Wells background, I knew how to bunt. He said, I want you to run this bunt station in 2002. And that's what I did. He also gave me defensive responsibility. So I was doing bunting and I was doing the outfield, which I still do today. Um, so, over time, you know, giving me sort of the keys to the offense and letting me, work off the play sheet and, just kind of freestyle and riff a little bit, in terms of, you can just sort of feel it, like trying to make cloud, um, that cloud appear over the horizon on the other team when you can just sort of feel like, hey, they're starting to come unglued, and the pressure's being applied. You can just sort of feel it and start pushing those buttons. Coach Femi has taught me a lot about that. Taking unnecessary risks. And pulling that back off the table and those types of things. He's a mentor to not just the players, but also the coaches.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Lots of respect going around.
And a lot of coaches that don't even coach for him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Like this
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot of guys he's mentored. That's for sure.
That's cool.
Even from a distance. Awesome. So last thing, just kind of wrapping things up here, man.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
a great thing. So you've been in the game almost nearly your whole life. What is something, like back in 2002, let's say what that you wish that you know now that you wish you knew when you started? Something that you know now that you wish
Hmm.
you knew when you got started.
Well, I was afraid this part of the interview might become a repeat session. So, yeah,
No
this would go
way.
back. This would go back to the relationships, and how, I really overlooked that part. And it took, maybe it happens to everybody as they get older to be able to look back and reflect that, hey, you know what? I could have been a better teammate, or, I wasn't putting as much emphasis on the relationships, and I wish I had been, at least on the playing side. And then even, when I started coaching, I coached an adult baseball in an adult baseball league there for maybe 4 or 5 years. Um, when I got to high school and then, started to realize that, hey, this is really what it's about. So that's the direction I'm going to head on that, in terms of the things that I wish that I had known before would be more on, you know, putting a greater emphasis on the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. There's definitely nothing wrong with hitting that again. That's for sure. Uh, I agree. That's awesome. That's awesome stuff. I really appreciate it. Coach, is there anything else that you want to kind of send us off on? Kind of anything else that you feel like you'd like to touch on before we get rolling here? Because this has been great, man. This has been awesome.
um, I'm trying to think of anything else that I might want to add.
Well, while you're thinking too, like I'm
Yeah.
thinking, like, what's the
Hmm.
you because you're awesome about email. Is that probably the best way? Like, let's say someone was talking about your competitive BP and things like that. Would the best way for people to reach out to you would be email?
Yep, absolutely. And of course, I don't know if you guys do much Facebook. St. Michael's Saints have a pretty decent Facebook page in terms of their baseball team. So you could get us that way, St. Michael's Saints Baseball, on Facebook. That's a good way to get us. Or you can definitely contact me directly, either by email or by phone if you want to do that, for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, what's
Mhm.
your I can put your email here. You want to say go
Okay.
ahead and say your email?
Sure. I'm at I'm bill.burton@dasis.com. It's D as in dog, A as in apple, C as in Charlie, IS as in Sam.com.
Got it. B.Burton at
Bill.burton.
dace.com. And you want to put your phone number out there?
Sure. 410.
Got it.
Area code 410-253-9031.
Got it. Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, just anything with like your base running stuff or competitive BP, you guys just rock and roll through it.
Yeah,
man.
it's
Awesome.
I mean, the buzzword this year is creating chaos. That's what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
We want our kids to be comfortable. When it's the rubber meets the road, we want them to be able to attack and defend. Those are the big types of things at the dish. You're attacking. You see so many kids, kind of a defensive in situations where they should be offensive, and vice versa. You need to be very defensive once you get 2 strikes, and so that is a mindset. That's a whole kind of just, working on it, and having all the coaches speaking or singing to the same sheet of music is just clutch. If they're hearing it from me, but they don't ever hear it from Femi or Gal or Wallace, then maybe it's just Coach B that feels that way. But if everybody's talking about the same things, using the same terminology, then, that's going to help change that mindset for that kid.
Speaking of that,
Mm-hmm.
just giving another thought and getting your perspective on this.
Yeah.
Is like, let's say you do, and let's say you believe in that. Well, let's even say that the assistants do, but and I'm not saying Coach Femi does, but I'm saying, is it also important? Do you feel like that Femi also has to reiterate what you guys are also, what an assistant coach also preaches, because like if the guy in charge doesn't believe this or doesn't say this, do you find it doesn't have much value?
Yes, I do. Yep.
So he's got to back you guys in ways too.
Yep. And, it's something like, hey, coach, I want to do this year. I want to try this so we can solve that, problem XYZ. I'm going to run it through him first so that I do get that backing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we try something like, dirt balls has been a real disaster area for us. We want to take free 90s when the defense, we can't steal the base and the pitcher is not giving us a category that we can do, kind of a UCLA thing on them. Then, we want to be able to dirt ball that, any ball in the dirt, we're gone. But, a lot of times a catcher will just, in a dirt ball situation, he'll pick it. And then, now you're going to be out by 15 feet and it looks stupid. So we really, we're talking about, okay, how are we going to fix that? And so, well, this year I want to try this, so it becomes like a lab. And I don't want to get down too far into it, but, you've got to have his commitment and he's got to be in agreement with it. It's everybody working off that same sheet of music.
Sure.
Yeah. So that would be a situation where it really hadn't worked all that well for us. So dirt balls, we're just saying, wait for the kick.
Yeah. I think Butch Taven came with a good thing, and I've seen it where it's not so much the ball in the dirt, is that the catcher's got to move. If the catcher moves left or right, like we're rolling, like you're looking for the catcher to move, and you're going. So it's not that he's just dropping into the knees. It's like he's now moving to the right or left, and we're rolling. So it's more like that, because you're typically not going to see a pick when he's got to move to the right. He's not going to go to, if he's going to pick it, he's not moving. He's just going to pick it. He'll just pick it with his hand.
Yeah.
But if he's got to move, then we're going. Then we're out of here. So I thought that was good.
To try. Yeah.
I thought that was a good piece there that you could kind of implement, where you could rep that, where you could just see a guy just dropping, stay, he shifts, go. He picks, stay, drop, stay, shift, go. You could almost rep that.
Yeah.
But that's where
you've
was
got to. Yeah. Over and over and over for sure. And we've tried going on the, trying to read the flight of the pitch, blah, blah, blah. It's just,
like you said,
us.
You sometimes get the guy that just picks it and you're out. It's definitely
always the bad catcher that does that.
Yeah.
He should be blocking.
Right. Well, Coach, this has been great, man. This has been great. I really
Thanks
appreciate the time. It's been
Thanks
awesome.
for inviting me.
A
That
lot
was
of
really
fun.
cool of you.
A lot of fun. Yeah, man.
It's good to connect with you too, also.
Coach Bill Burton, St. Michael's, Maryland, St. Michael's High School, multiple state champion, been state assistant coach of the year, spent 20 years, 2 decades here with the program at St. Michael's, turning into a powerhouse that they are. Wouldn't be without the help of some really consistent, great help like Coach Burton. Just loved our conversation. You talk about the nuts and bolts and really getting down to business. We rolled on some stuff, man. Like Coach Burton, just let it ride. Just loved the quote of anything. If third base, if I'm running at third base, anything above my belly button, I'm back. Simple. Below the belly button, go. Just simple. I love it. Above the belly button, get back. Just keeping everybody moving. Finding ways to do that inside of a good practice. Just starting the practice right away. Jeff Sherman talked about getting in the zoo right away. You can see that St. Michael's, they get into the zoo right away. You're talking base running. Well, yeah, we're going to do a little bit of stretching, dynamic warm-up. We're going to get into base running. We're not just going to run out in left field, go touch the pole, and come back. Nope, we're going to use the time to teach and get better. We're going to put the kids right in the zoo and actually rep it, because these guys are walking and being leaders. True leaders will not expect things that they haven't trained, all right? And they won't expect things that they haven't done themselves. And that's exactly what they're preaching, and I think that's what they're showing with their actions, what they're doing there in practice to the young men that are there. So incredible things. Loved how he said, and he finished it up, and like he said, he repeated it, but it was worth repeating. That this game is about the relationships. He had got started in the game because of the game and loved baseball and wanted to do that, loved the game, but it came down to being about relationships and about the kids and how we're helping them. So couldn't agree more, and it's exactly what this podcast is about, and it's exactly why I called Coach Burton, and continue looking for those great guys that grow the game the right way, looking for it in that manner. So couldn't agree more, and I appreciate him saying those kind of things. And again, reach out to Coach Burton for anything else, more specific things that he kind of went over. Bill.Burton, that's Burton, at Daxis.com, DACIS.com. Bill.Burton at Daxis.com. Again, you can call, text him, 410-253-9031. And again, check St. Michael's Baseball, St. Michael's Saint Baseball on Facebook. Check those guys out. So, again, just doing a tremendous job. Coach Burton, can't thank you enough. And until next week, keep getting better.